Minister an teachta Eamon Gilmore ceann lucht uimhe.
Cancorla, I've previously raised here the reports that workers on the Irish Ferries vessel, which running between Ireland and France, are to be paid €4 an hour. €4 an hour. Now, it's not the only case of low pay that has been in the news in the past week. Last week, the government was forced to concede in the High Court a case which has resulted in the striking down of the employment regulation order which sets the minimum wages and conditions for 25,000 workers in Irish hotels, which has implications for about 250,000 mostly low-paid workers working in various services who are covered by the joint labour committees. We also know that over the past 2 years there have been 296 detections of breaches of the minimum wage legislation, but there's been only one prosecution out of that 296. There has apparently been an increase in the number of labour inspectors employed, which is welcome, but there has been a drop in the number of inspections being carried out. There was 1,500 less inspections carried out last year, a drop of 9% on the number of labour inspections, despite the increase in the number of inspectors. And of course, the number of inspectors who are employed in turn is now up to 50, I understand, but is significantly less than the 90 that was promised in the employment agreement. And meanwhile, the government is delaying and bringing forward legislation to protect the rights of agency workers. There was a promised employment law compliance bill, which has still not appeared. And of course, the government is one of 3 EU countries that is continuing to block the EU directive on temporary agency workers. So I want to know, Cancorla, from the Taoiseach, what is going to be done by the government to protect the rights, particularly of low-paid workers, and to eradicate in this well-off country with a prosperous economy the continuing exploitation of low-paid workers? What investigation has been carried out about the reports of the €4 an hour on the Irish Ferries vessel? What is going to be done by the government to protect the pay and conditions of the 25,000 hotel workers who have now been exposed as a result of last week's High Court decision? And when will the necessary legislation be brought before this House to provide adequate protection for workers who are on low pay?
Gilmore.
First of all, I want to thank the Taoiseach for his reply. He covered a lot of ground in all of that. I acknowledge that consultation is required in relation to a number of these matters, but I'm sure, as the Taoiseach will have seen, some of the social partners have been indicating over the course of the past week that the lack of action by government on the matters that I have raised this morning could cause them to hold back from entering into new social partnership talks. The difficulty with the minimum wage, of course, is the fact that it is not being enforced. And as I've drawn attention to, 296 cases detected, but only 1 prosecution being brought. So, first of all, why is that the case? Secondly, can the Taoiseach tell me why has the number of inspections dropped, even though the number of inspectors has increased? And thirdly, in relation to the hotel workers issue, which is the most immediate one that has been dealt with over the course of the past week, what is now the position with regard to the hotel workers? Is it intended that a new employment regulation order will be made for hotel workers, or is the Taoiseach accepting that their pay is going to be pinned to the minimum wage? And I'd remind him that in the case of hotel workers, we're talking in many cases people like waiters and bar staff and so on, skilled people working in the hotel industry whose wages were traditionally set by the joint labour committees and were not pinned to the minimum wage. Did I understand from from the end of his reply that it is intended to introduce new legislation to strengthen the Joint Labour Committee system and to provide protection not only for the 25,000 hotel workers, but for the other 250,000 largely low-paid workers who are covered by the JLC arrangement? Thanks.